DeKalb County. So, yes, unincorporated Oxford, which is where I reside. I'm out here enjoying the beautiful weather that we're having right now. But yes, as the redistricting changed, it pushed unincorporated Oxford into District 93. So that is the new district. But however, I am a Newton County resident and happy to be on the ballot in May. So that will be May the 24th, and early voting starts May the 2nd. So I just wanted to share that with you all.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
Anyone else like to speak? Okay. Hearing no one else, we'll move forward with the next item on our agenda, item 7, which is the removal of signage and initiation of community dialogues. Where we talked about this at the work session. And so what I'm proposing and asking for a motion on is that we remove the 3-panel marker on Watcoat Street, the sign across Wesley Street from the old church, the sign in front of the slave house, which is referred to as Kitty's Cottage, and the granite marker at the Oxford Historical Cemetery. And then we initiate a series of community dialogues, which we will have facilitated by a third party. We'll bring that to you all separately for consideration, and use that as a process to develop a clear action plan that will include how we will memorialize enslaved persons and how we will continue to share the fullness of our history as we move forward. Do I have a motion to act on this?
You want to discuss it before or after the motion?
Let's go ahead and put the motion on the table, Jim, and we'll discuss.
So moved.
Okay. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Great, thank you. Now we have some discussion.
No, I was under the impression, and I don't know really, apparently I'm not really good at impressions, that the sign in front of City Hall was going to be included in that.
We can include it. It does have similar, sort of supports the similar narrative that is reflected elsewhere, Jim. And I maybe view that as an oversight on my part. If you want to add that to it, we can amend the.
I'd like to amend my motion to add that sign.
Can I get a second on Jim's amendment?
Yeah,
Okay,
Mr. Mayor, may I?
absolutely,
Yeah.
George, go ahead.
I was thinking that we're talking about the wording on those signs are not correct. And
Right.
are we not talking about correcting the wording on the signs?
I think it makes sense, George, as we move forward to look at what we want to put where and how we want to express the history. And so I would imagine that would include replacing, what's there with something new that,
We're not saying that. I was kind of thinking like maybe we should do that first. And that would probably eliminate some of the backlog of this, I guess I call it this. If we kind of had the dialogue before we just moved the sign.
That's correct. This is Jeff. I agree with George. I'm looking at this and I'm saying I don't know that necessarily we want to remove any signs. We might want to replace them. We might want to change them. And I think that the proposal to initiate a series of community dialogues would be better served to do that before we started moving any signs or taking anything down or anything like that.
So just a quick comment on that, and I appreciate y'all sharing that perspective, is that there's by no means are we suggesting we damage or destroy the signs or the markers, but that if we're all essentially in agreement that they need to be at the least amended, that taking them down shows that we are going to be taking action on making an amendment to what is there. And sort of further punctuates our commitment. And then we can work on amending with some replacement signs where that's deemed to be appropriate.
Yeah. With all due respect, Mayor, I think myself that it would be better to have a dialogue with everybody involved, especially the community, before we either change or remove or do anything with any of the signs. That to me, just arbitrarily taking the signs down or whatever we're going to do before we have some dialogue. There are some people here who, from the black community, that I think I'd like to hear from to see what some of their feelings are. Because some of this, to be real honest with you, in my opinion, is somewhat history. And I'm an advocate of history. I'm not an advocate of some of the things that have gone on in history, but by the same token, it is part of our past and our heritage, both on every which way you might want to look at it. So I would really like to see a dialogue before anything at all is done, any removal, any changes, or anything else. I really do.
Anyone else? have a
Mr.
comment?
Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I understand the point of view of what's just been said, but if you have the dialogue about what we're going to change it to, that's a prolonged process. And I believe that taking the signs down and putting them in proper storage in case one of those signs needs to be replaced again is the proper way, and move forward with the sign removal and then ask the community which they would like to see on the signs. Because otherwise we're looking 6-7 months down the road. Some of the college kids will rotate out and we'll get the same comments back again from the next group.
Well, I respect your comment, Mr. Reddy, but you're talking about also, in this proposal here, you're talking about removing that granite marker. If you're talking about removing the granite marker, then that is part of the sign, and if you'd want to change it, then you'd be removing the place where the sign may better be placed or best placed. So I don't know that is the proper approach or the proper way to look at this thing and look at it for the long term.
Well, if you look at what has gone on in other cities with these kind of granite markers and all, it can get kind of hostile environment. So if we're proactive and take care of it now, I think we'll calm more people down than leaving them up.
I tell you what, Jeff. Hey, Jeff. Or
Yes, sir.
Councilman Waring, if you don't mind, I just want to open up and see if any other council members have a comment. Laura,
Okay.
do you have
Yeah.
any questions or comments?
I don't really. I'm fine with taking them down at this point in time, so long as we are fairly proactive about moving the dialogue along and not letting this languish forever.
Okay. Has Lynn joined us by chance?
I don't know, wherever she was, I got a text like minutes before our meeting saying they were having some incredibly bad weather and they were on the road.
Okay. Well, I'll just make one quick comment and then back to you, Councilman Waring, for some more comment. But that I think the idea is the language in these signs is an inaccurate representation of our history. So it's a little unique compared to maybe some other issues over markers and monuments, where we have statements that perpetuate a false narrative about our history and about certain events, and do so in a way that is, inappropriate and offensive to a large segment of the population based on what we've already heard. And so by removing them, it demonstrates our commitment to affecting some change with respect to how this, our history is presented, and then working together on what that will look like moving forward. So anyway, back to you, Councilman Reddy, if you wanted to make, or I'm sorry, Councilman Waring.
Okay. Well, I have trying to explain the way I look at this thing. I think that there needs to be more input into what is either rewritten or put in there. And I don't know that taking them down at this particular point would actually accomplish what some people may think they would. I don't think that there's anybody that in this town that I've talked to myself that has any hostility about what those signs say or the intent of the signs or anything else. And I just have a tendency to think that we need to rather than putting the cart before the horse, I think we need to take the horse and take him and walk him around a little bit and see what we come up with before anything is actually done.
Sorry, go ahead.
I disagree with nobody has any problem with what's on those signs. I think that's what I kind of interpret that was just said.
No, I didn't say no one. Well, let's put it this way. I've come across some people that think that perhaps the signs need to be changed, but they don't know what to put on them. In other words, this is, again, a part of our history, whether we like it or not. And that being the case, they believe that maybe we should look at it overall, or look at the picture differently, or take it into consideration the things that have gone on and know what we want to put up there before we just start taking down signs.
I guess I have to say this about it represents our history. What we're talking about here to make sure it actually represents what our history really was.
Well,
I support Councilman Waring's desire to have a lot of input, and we definitely need a lot of input. We all inherited these signs, these markers, and did not have any input when they were put up ourselves. And so we are definitely going to get through these series of community dialogues, input on how we should tell our stories, right? How we should represent our history, and where, and who, we should, whose stories we should elevate, and, et cetera, that have been perhaps ignored and been untold over the history, 180 plus years of our history. So I think it's definitely everyone's supportive of input, Jeff. So thank you for that.
Yeah, well, I mean, I agree with that. We should have input. No question whatsoever.
Yeah. Any other comments from the council? Okay, can I just ask for a vote? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All
I
opposed, say
sustain.
nay.
I sustain.
I have to
Okay.
sustain too at this point.
Sorry, George, you're
Yeah,
sustaining or abstaining?
being, yeah, right. The reason being is because of the fact that, I don't know, I just feel like if we just decide just to take them all down and nothing is said, I'm thinking the community would not accept this as much if they feel like they had some input in it.
Absolutely. That's the way
I mean,
The idea,
no, don't get me wrong. I'm for taking the signs down and changing them. Don't get me wrong.
the idea is take them down and then
It's
decide what we're going to change them to.
kind of the method. I mean, that's the only thing I was thinking. The method is how we kind of doing it. That's all.
May I say something?
Yes, sir.
I think that we as a council were elected and charged with making some decisions for the city. And we can't, if we wait to get feedback from everybody on every decision, we'll never make a decision. And I can assure you, being somewhat of a student of history myself and reading both sides of histories, there are many inaccuracies in almost every history, because history is written by the victor and the powerful. It's not written by it puts a slant on it. And though it may be acceptable in the day that it was written, is no longer acceptable. And I think the wise thing to do is take the signs down and then move forward as rapidly as possible.
And that is my intent, Councilman Wyndham, as well, right? Is to demonstrate our commitment by taking them down and then move smartly towards consensus on what to replace them with, what to put up. But rather, if we leave them there, it may suggest we're never going to do anything about it.
It's very likely we won't.
Yeah. I guess I have to say is that my vote, I cannot not vote to take the signs down. See, I'm kind of in a situation where I cannot vote to leave the signs up. And I'm just kind of torn between how we're taking them down. So
well, and let me clarify.
That's part of my problem too.
No, taking them down respectfully and putting them in safe storage but they will need to be amended and most likely have to be replaced because we're talking about signs that are done in, with like iron or what, I don't know what the metal is they're used, nickel or whatever. And then granite. So, I mean, it would be an involved process to amend them, but we would definitely, we're not talking about taking them down and destroying them, or we're just talking about removing them from where they are because they misrepresent our history, and then having conversations about what to replace them with and put them back, in a time, or put something up in a timely manner. So definitely not talking about destroying them, George, just really removing them to demonstrate our commitment to change.
Could I say one more thing, Mr. Mayor? This is Jeff.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. If you all recall, those signs, or the sign especially at Kitty's Cottage, I can't speak for all of them, were put up by the Historical Society. When Kitty's Cottage was moved and that granite stone was put there and they decided to move it behind the church. So the Historical Society, to me, should have some input as to what they feel about that particular sign. And I'm using that sign as a sort of a headstone, or whatever you want to call it, to the rest of the signs, because I don't know where some of these other signs came from or how they came there. I really don't. And I think to make an intelligent decision, I'd like to know more about it, other than the fact I know where the sign in front of Kitty's Cottage came from. And that was the Historical Society. And I know George was on it, I believe, at that particular time, as I don't know anybody else on the council at this particular time was, but I know I was.
Well,
And I was on the council, but I helped to move that cottage and helped to put up that sign.
well,
And I was. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
no, I'm sorry. I thought you were done.
No. Well, I'll end it. Thank you.
Well, there have been people that would not go into Kitty's Cottage that did not represent it was not a good cross section of the community that put that there or put the sign there. And I think that's the point across the board, that none of the signs have been represent a good cross section of the community. And I think that is the problem, and that's the reason I would like to see them come down. And again, there's nothing in my motion about destroying the signs. Storing them respectfully, assembling a cross-section committee to address all of that, the people such as yourself that have a strong interest in the community. I'm 100% for that. But I have objected to those signs since the day I got on the council. And if you'll recall, the dean even referred to a comment that I had made early on talking about them. It's just, I just think it's in the best interest of the community to take them down respectively, store them, and as soon as possible. And David moves with good haste on all of these things, like such as this, to appoint a community section, a cross-section of representative to address that. And it should include you, Jeff, because you are a student of history.
Well,
I have a question.
Okay, I just like to
Sorry.
say, I was not a part of anything to do with Kitty's Cottage as my tenure on the Historic Society.
That I didn't
Okay,
think
well,
you were, but I wasn't
didn't-
going to speak for you, George.
well, I didn't remember whether you were on it or not, George.
No, I'm not, no, that's you, Jeff. I just want to make it clear that has never been anything that I had any desires to be involved with.
Okay.
And certainly, any signs that belong, I mean, these are all on city property, but if they belong to the Historical Society, they would be handed over to the Historical Society, or we could offer to store the signs, but we would definitely give them the prerogative of
Well-
taking possession of the signs, but they are on city property.
Mr. Mayor, can I make one more comment, please? I think George's statement underlined exactly what I was talking about. Thank you, George.
Did somebody, Laura, were you trying to say something?
Yeah, so for clarification, can you please state exactly which signs, because I think we have a little confusion about which signs are being removed. We're talking about a granite sign at Old Church, but I was under the impression that it was actually the sign across the street in front of the benches.
Yeah, if you read,
Can you just clarify?
if you
Go ahead.
read the language that's on the agenda that was sent out, the one sign it omits, Councilman Wyndham asked to amend to add, which is the sign next to City Hall, which on the west side of it
Right,
perpetuates
I'm
the same
pretty,
false narrative.
I think I have a pretty clear picture, but Jeff was referring to the big granite
Yeah, that's not.
sign behind Old Church, and I didn't think that that was on the original list for us to take down.
No, I can read it again. It's the sign across Wesley Street from Old Church, and that was one that was
Yes.
installed within the last few years.
Yes,
Mr. Mayor,
The,
excuse me for cutting you off, but I was thinking the sign that's across the street there by the bench was put up in concerning with the move through Oxford people. I thought that sign, I never looked at it, but I thought that that was put up by the people who wanted to put up the markers of the march through Oxford.
It was, George, and if you look at it, it perpetuates the same false narrative about Catherine Boyd and Bishop Andrews.
Unfortunately, I never looked at it. Okay.
Yeah, I sent you all before the last work session, I sent out a link to some photos that I had taken
Yes.
of each of those signs. You could see the language that's in each of those signs. But you know, it's so the one, yeah, that you were just talking about, George, across the street from the church that was put up as part of the I forget what they call that movement, but anyway, the signs, sort of the march to Sherman's March to the Sea kind of thing. But it still has the same narrative. The sign, there's a small sign that's right in front of what's called Kitty's Cottage.
yes,
And then
but
there's
not the big rock.
no, that is
Yeah.
that is a marker for when the old church was restored.
Right,
And has nothing to do with what we're talking about. Yeah.
right.
The
I
granite,
thought
there is
that-
a large granite marker at the cemetery,
Yes,
which is by the old oak tree on the sort of more towards the north side of the cemetery.
yes,
That is further elaboration of this same false narrative about the agency that Catherine Boyd had in terms of her future and her ability to live freely in the city, et cetera, et cetera.
yes.
and
The only thing I was concerned about, David, was I thought that Jeff had accidentally included the giant granite marker about Old
Well-
Church, and I just wanted you to clarify that that's not in the group.
Right.
Okay, that's
It's not
not the way
named
this
here.
reads, in my opinion. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Finish what you're doing. I
The
apologize.
way
for interrupting.
the way the agenda reads, Jeff, Councilman.
Yeah, the way this proposal, this item number 7, removal of the signage
Yes.
and initiate a community dialogue, okay?
Yes.
The way it sounds on here, it's the granite marker at the historic, well, that's the one at the historical
It says-
cemetery.
Yeah, it says
Okay,
Oxford
I read
Historic
it wrong.
Cemetery. Yeah.
Okay, I apologize. I apologize that it's the
No,
one
no,
at the
I
cemetery.
think
not
it's important everybody's clear on what we're talking about and,
Okay,
which
well, it needs to
markers
be,
we're
yes,
having.
yes,
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, I agree with that.
okay. So again, we're talking
Actually,
about
I was-
removal.
I was
I'm
kind of
sorry.
like Jeff. I kind of had in mind that was the marker too. I just found out that the one across the street, I was here when that was done, and I didn't realize that was being done that way. I would not have voted for that.
I think a lot of us, just really didn't pay a whole lot of attention, George, to what, I mean, it was, I think we were asleep at the wheel perhaps. And in going back and rereading it now, and I hope you all will, I did, like I said, provide y'all those photos. I wanted you to read what they say with a new set of pair of glasses. And it's kind of like when we revisited the decision about putting up those signs that led to that location, we had we changed our mind. And so I think we're looking at it with a fresh perspective and seeing that it is part of a pattern of perpetuating a false narrative about our history and the freedom, the agency that individuals who were enslaved that lived in town had. and the extent to which slaves were held by other members, by Bishop Andrew, who actually had over 20 slaves, didn't just inherit one, and that there were slaves held by several members of the clergy, pretty much every clergy in town, and faculty members and others in town. That, you know, we need to further be truthful about the history and not romanticize this a slave woman who is, you know, is called Kitty, and because that's what she was known by her owners, but not what her actual God-given name was.
Mayor Edie, can we restate what the amended motion was and clarify the votes?
Well, I was going to go through and allow everyone to cast their vote individually, kind of a roll call vote,
Okay.
but I will restate the motion, which is to for the city to remove the 3-panel marker on Watcoat Street, the sign across Wesley Street from the old church, the sign in front of the slave house known as Kitty's Cottage, and the granite marker at the Oxford Historic Cemetery, and the sign that is a historic marker sign at the City Hall, which was an amendment that Mr. Wyndham made. And additionally, that we initiate a series of community dialogues, which we will contract with a third party to facilitate, that will lead to an action plan on how we will move forward with memorializing enslaved persons and otherwise sharing the fullness of our history moving forward. Jim, does that
That
your
nails it.
motion?
That
Okay.
nails it.
And we had it seconded, I believe it was Councilman Reddy that seconded it, or if I'm not mistaken. So I'm going to go through the roll, and I will start
Don't
with.
start with me.
I'll start on the other side of the dais, but I'm coming around, George.
Oh, yeah, now you start with the other side.
I'll
I
start with
vote,
Jim.
I vote yes.
Jim Wyndham, yes. Jeff Waring,
I'm going to sustain.
or abstain?
Abstain, yes.
Yes, okay. Lynn Bohannon is not joining us, correct? Laura McCandless,
I vote yay.
okay. Mike Reddy,
Oh, yeah.
okay, and George Holt,
A reluctantly yes, because I can't vote not to take down those signs.
okay, okay. Well, I will believe you, George. I was going to vote yay, and because I am allowed to vote. I'm not restricted to a tie vote, and so I would have been a fourth vote regardless. So count my vote among the 5 who voted yay, with 1 abstention from Councilman Waring. Does that, you get that, Marcia? Okay, well, we will move forward on this, and we can talk about some of the specifics at the work session on how we're going to move forward in time and manner. All right, now we can move on through the rest of the agenda items. Item 8 is a resolution to amend the signatures allowed for the Georgia Fund 1 account. We need to update the signature authorization to change the city manager.
I move we adopt the resolution as stated.
Have a second? Okay, a second. Okay, any questions? All right, all in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, nay. Okay, moving consensus there. Passes number 9, resolution to amend the signatures allowed for the MEAG competitive trust account. We again need to update those to reflect the change in city manager.
I'll make the motion.
Okay, do I have a second?
I say,
Okay.
Okay, George for a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, say nay. Okay, moving to item 10, we have a letter of request and memorandum of agreement with Northeast Georgia Regional Commission to contract with them to update our comprehensive plan for 2023. This is in accordance with the requirements of the State Department of Community Affairs. And we have a attachment that states the cost. Let me make sure I'm reading this correct. It's the cost of $3,000 for 2 formal public hearings and 3 or more input meetings. Oh, okay, I see what it is. They gave us 2 costs. So we need to decide, are we going to have 2 formal public hearings and 3 or more input meetings? Or are we going to have 2 formal public hearings, which is the minimum required, and 5 or more input meetings?
In a small town like this, I don't see no need of having any more than 2 and 3.
I agree with George.
You want to make that a motion, George?
Yes, I move that we accept this contract at the $3,000 mark.
Okay, I have a second.
Second,
Okay, any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, say nay. Just a real quick note on that. We do need nominations for me to appoint to a steering committee of up to 5 to 7 members that include staff, elected officials, residents, and others, including members of the business community that can help, basically just as a steering committee, they help steer the process and work with Northeast Georgia Regional Commission. So if you have any recommendations, if you can send those to Bill and copy me, then we'll get that committee staffed up and move out. Item 11, we have a recommendation from the Trees, Parks and Recreation Board to accept the proposal from Reforest ATL LLC to remove invasive species in Asbury Street Park. We discussed it in the work session. The scope includes the entirety of the park, the wooded section of the park, and removing all the invasives there per the proposal that was submitted. I can't remember the amount. I don't have it open right in front of me. Bill, do you remember oh, there it is.
You need a motion?
Yes, sir.
So moved.
All right.
Second.
Do I have a second? Okay. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, say nay. Great. Now we have the opportunity to take a look at the invoices and answer any questions you all have on those. If you could scroll that up just a tad there. Sent out to you all as part of your package as well.
That over and under contract was actually electric, not sewer pipes.
And I'm
Yeah, that was to run the underground electric lines to the renovated, the old kitchen that they renovated at the president's home.
and that will be refunded by the
Yes,
college.
reimbursed. It'll be reimbursed by them. Yeah.
Reimbursed, not refunded, reimbursed.
Yes, reimbursed by the university. Yep, yep.
okay.
Any other questions?
Nope.
Okay, great. Well, Bill, unless I'm remembering it correctly, we don't have anything for executive session, I believe.
No, sir.
We are done. So with that, I'll call for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So,
Have a second?
second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 Oh, could
All
I say
opposed,
one
nay.
thing, Mr. Mayor?
Okay, it's
Saturday,
outside of session, but you go ahead, Jeff.
Well, doesn't make any difference when in session or not. Anybody that's listening, if you can, this coming Saturday, we're going to have our get together to redo the park and the George Street Park fence. So anybody that can come and help, I'm going to need it. It's not supposed to rain anymore after tomorrow, so let's hope it works. And I apologize for having to do it the last time, but Jody and I decided it was best to with as wet as it was, to cancel the work session, or whatever you want to call it.
8 a.m. start, Jeff,
9.
9 o'clock, okay, 9 a.m. at George Street Park.
Correct. Up on top.
Okay, great. And we're gonna be replacing that split rail fence.
That's correct. What we can. Some of
Yes.
it we may not be able to do, and also doing some cleanup work on some of the other fence.
Great, great. I do want to thank the Lions Club and the Scouts. I should have said this in my announcements or my mayor's announcement. I think they were up there cleaning this weekend at the current city park and some other areas of town. So really appreciate them coming and pitching in. And
And that's great.
Yep. All right. Well, thanks y'all. Everybody have a great evening. And
Okay, thank you.
And we are going to
Good
have an in-person work session 2 weeks from today.
You got it.
All right. Don't
Thank
take any
you.
vacation. See y'all.
Bye-bye.
Bye.